13 years ago, there was a meme running, a meme in the internet, Poland can into space, which was kind of this, I mean, it was basically mocking Polish grandeur, Polish nationalism, but it turned out that, yeah, Poland can into space, Poland has into space, Poland will into space, and we will do a lot of space in the near future. So yes, pay attention.
Welcome to the Warsaw Wire, where we explore the forces shaping Poland's business and energy, from technological breakthroughs to geopolitical shifts. I'm your host, Alicja Ptak, a senior editor at Notes from Poland, and today we are looking up, literally. In the past few years, Poland has gone from a modest space participant to one of Europe's most dynamic new space players. We built satellites and even sent an astronaut back into orbit for the first time in nearly half a century. To unpack what's behind this boom and what it means for Poland's economy, science and security, I am joined by Wojciech Brzeziński, a science journalist and editor writing for Tygodnik Powszechny, Interia and Academia. He was also a Knight Science Journalism Fellow at MIT and lectures at Civitas University. Wojciech, welcome to the Warsaw Wire. Thank you for coming to talk to us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I would like to start with the story that brought you here today. Recently, you wrote a very interesting insight for Notes from Poland about the recent boom in Poland's space industry. You start with a very cinematic moment, Falcon 9 rocket launching with the first Polish astronaut in nearly 50 years. I wonder why you chose this moment and why it felt significant for you.
It was all over the news for about 3 months here in Poland. Well, it was certainly the most spectacular, if maybe not the most important moment in the recent history of Polish space efforts. It's always an important moment when a country's citizen goes into space. In this case, not the first time, the second time. We did have General Hermaszewski fly on a Soviet Soyuz craft in 1978, but since then, we've really had no opportunity to see one of our own citizens out there in orbit. So it was an important moment for everyone, not just those people who were actually actively interested in space, but, it did stir something, you could say, and a little bit of technological, scientific patriotism in Poland. So I thought that was a perfect image to start a story about how the Polish space sector, space industry, evolved over the last, mainly the last 13 years, because it's really one of the rare success stories that Poland has had in let's say, high technology industries. In most cases, when it comes to high technologies, we are usually, contractors. Our companies make assemblies, make parts that are, then turned into final products by major corporations from the United States, from South Korea, from Japan, etc., etc., etc. In this case, we went from being a complete afterthought. 15 years ago, there was no Polish space industry to speak of, to actually becoming a fairly important player in many aspects of the European space industry. I mean, we're not a major power by any means, not yet. But the changes that happened over the last 13 years have been massive. And just to put it in perspective, the first Polish satellite was launched 10 years ago. It was literally the size, you could fit it in your hand. It was a student project called PWSat, made by students from Politechnika Warszawska, the Warsaw Technical University. It malfunctioned while in orbit, but it got there. This year, for the first time ever, we will have over 1 ton of Polish satellites orbiting the Earth. So there's actually one of the experts I talked to, Dr. Bochiński, told me that it was a running joke in the Polish space industry that, whenever we talk about launching things into space, like we do in shipping, we speak in terms of tonnage, which made absolutely no sense in the context of Polish space efforts, because we literally launched palm-sized items most of the time. But this year, for the first time ever, the term tonnage in the context of Polish space makes sense because we actually have over 1 ton of Polish products, Polish devices orbiting the planet as it is. And in many cases, those things are top of the line. Those things are some of the most advanced in their class in the world. We are actively profiting in some ways from the fact that we joined this race so late, because we can start by using all of the greatest technologies from the last couple of years to build our own devices with no technological heritage, technological baggage, so to speak. So our companies, our engineers can really focus on creating the most efficient, the most effective satellites and other space-related technologies that they can. And that's the story of how we got there is really quite fascinating. And you know, the image of the first Polish astronaut actually performing Polish-made, Polish-designed experiments while in orbit was an excellent way to cap those first 13, 15 years of the development of the industry.
So basically, we went from a palm-size equipment to a human Apollo on the orbit in less than 15 years, right? And this is what makes Polish space industry so interesting.
Basically, yes. Of course, he didn't go to space on board of a Polish rocket or a Polish spacecraft. I mean, obviously, we're still getting there. But yes, definitely. We've moved from having no space industry to speak of. There was literally one scientific center that would design experiments for various interplanetary missions. And that was the Polish Academy of Sciences Space Research Center. They've made quite a reputation for themselves for designing some specialized devices for instance, probes that were supposed to take samples from passing comets or asteroids. They were good at that. And just that, basically. But then there's those same people who grew up making those devices, started creating their own companies, started working on their own ideas, the ideas that really had no chance of coming to fruition before 2012. And all of a sudden turned out that those ideas were great. The companies they founded are doing fantastically well. And something that was non-existent 13 years ago, an industry that was non-existent 13 years ago, now employs about 15,000 people around the country and consists of about 450 companies and institutions. So it has been a massive explosion of ingenuity, explosion of entrepreneurship in a very, very difficult marketplace because traditionally, the space sector has been dominated by a few very powerful players. It's not easy to break into that sector, and several, not one, but several Polish companies have managed to do that spectacularly well.
For the listeners that don't know much about the Polish space sector, especially before this recent boom, can you walk us through how we got here? What is the history?
It really comes down to one decision that happened in 2012. And that decision was for Poland to join the European Space Agency, ESA. Now, ESA is important. One of the important things to remember is that ESA is not a European Union body. It's a completely separate organization. The EU is actually one of the members of the Space Agency and not the other way around. Poland has not been a member, and the decision to become a member was not easy, well, because it's not a cheap membership, right? You have to pay for what you get. But on the other hand, ESA rules state that over 95, I believe, % of a country's contribution is then redistributed among companies from that country. So if Poland pays 100 million euros to the European Space Agency, then over 95 million euros come back to Poland as investments, as contracts for Polish companies, Polish universities, Polish laboratories, etc., etc., etc. So that was an immediate injection of cash into that system. And as a result of that decision, well, the first contracts went to universities, went to the Polish Academy of Sciences, because those were the only institutions out there that were actually prepared to do any work for the European Space Agency. But very, very quickly we started to see startups spring up and start bidding on the European Space Agency's contracts. Now, at first, they weren't facing much competition because, again, the European Space Agency wanted to foster this industry here in Poland. So we had programs specifically designed for the Polish space industry. There was a pool of money that was earmarked for the Polish companies. So what those startups got was A, an injection of money, and B, experience in working with European partners that otherwise they would not be able to get. And within a couple of years, those companies started growing so quickly and developing so quickly and changing so quickly that it was no longer necessary to keep them in this sort of like a space kindergarten. Right now, they're bidding on under the exact same rules as the European partners, and they're winning many contracts that they're actively seeking. So they've grown from tiny startups started by usually like 1, 2, 3, 5 people, to companies that in some cases employ well over 1,000 employees. And just to give you an example, we have one company here in Warsaw that set up a production line for satellites, complete satellites. Now, when we joined the European Space Agency, there was an official government document, a sort of like a map of what the Polish space sector should look like in, say, 10, 15 years. And that document, from today's perspective, was shockingly conservative, because according to that document, after 13 years, we should start working on fairly large components for other people's satellites. We're building complete satellites. We're building brand new complete satellites with capabilities that go beyond many products from the, let's say, legacy companies working in the sector. So the industry has developed much, much faster than anybody in positions of power had expected when we were actually opening this door, when we were joining the European Space Agency. This came as a complete surprise to most decision makers. It came as a surprise to the European Space Agency. I've talked to people from the Polish companies working closely with ESA, and they say that, whenever ESA people come here, they say that, we have a problem with you guys because we came here to show you something and you've been doing things far more advanced for a year now. I mean, we can't keep up. So yeah, it's been a surprise to everyone. Probably not so much to the people working in the companies themselves. I mean, they were a pretty ambitious bunch to start with. So I think they're pretty happy with themselves right now. But everybody else is kind of surprised at how fast and how far we got. And in fact, there are some signs that this is just the beginning, because right now we're mainly working on small to medium-sized satellites, for instance, for Earth imaging, which is super important. We will probably get to that in a minute, especially with respect to the Ukrainian war and the security situation around the world. But we also have companies and scientific research centers that have started working on building Polish launch vehicles, rockets. Right now, we have one company called Space Forest and the Institute of Aviation that are separately building 2 suborbital rockets that might be used for atmospheric research, for testing various space technologies. That's actually a fairly lucrative sector. They're not full-sized rockets. They don't go into orbit. They go up and then they go down, giving whatever's on board several minutes of weightlessness. But that is often enough for whatever experiments that have to be made. And it's much cheaper than sending a rocket into actual space. But it's also the first step on the way to building rockets that can actually reach orbit with, at first, small satellites, but again, we have a lot of those, and then potentially with larger and larger cargo. There are several companies that have attempted to do this. There's one in New Zealand that's actually growing quite nicely, but still, this is a very narrow market, very competitive market with very few players. To even attempt to do this sort of thing just speaks of the crazy levels of ambition that those people have, honestly, in those companies, in those institutions, because this is hard. Like, there's an old saying in the space business, a very brief, to the point saying that says space is hard. And this is the hardest thing about space, just getting there. And now we have companies here in Poland, we have institutions here in Poland that are not just talking about maybe doing that in the future. They're already building the rockets that might get them there in a couple of years. And that 15 years ago, nobody would have predicted.
I wanted to ask you how the second Polish astronaut, Sławosz Uznański, got to go to the International Space Station. What's the history behind how a Pole got this chance to go there? I've heard that there were some additional steps Poland had to take in order to make that possible.
Yes, I mean, first of all, I haven't spoken to anybody in the Polish space industry who would say anything other than that he was the best, the most qualified person that could potentially go to space. I mean, he was pretty well known in a number of Polish companies, even before he joined the European Space Agency's astronaut corps. He was a well-known engineer working at CERN, the European Nuclear Research Center in Geneva. He worked with many Polish companies on space technologies for years before he applied to become an ESA astronaut. And the story is this. Several years ago, the European Space Agency opened the first recruitment drive for astronauts in, I think it was at the time, 8 years. And for the first time ever, that recruitment was open to citizens of the new ESA member countries, such as Poland. So a lot of people applied. I think several thousand people sent their applications, and I personally know at least 5 who sent them in. But here's the thing: Sławosz Uznański-Wiśniewski got in. He was named as a NASA, and here's the important thing, reserve astronaut, meaning he was very nearly an astronaut, but not quite yet. And the reason for that is that, well, technically, historically, all of the European Space Agency's astronauts came from countries that were a part of the European Space Agency's human spaceflight program, meaning that they chose to pay extra to be a part of the human spaceflight program, which A, gives you a chance to send your own citizens into space, and B, they, while in space, can run experiments that are created by industries, universities, etc., from your country, which is, everybody's going to tell you, great thing. So very quickly, the previous Polish government decided that, okay, this is an opportunity that's too good to pass. And Poland almost immediately decided to join the European Space Agency's human spaceflight program. And lo and behold, within months, Sławosz Uznański-Wiśniewski became an active astronaut assigned to a mission. So that was a great marketing play from the European Space Agency, and a very quick and decisive decision by the Polish government to use the opportunity that it was given. And the end result is that, I mean, we did have the prestige kick of having our own citizen into space for the first time in 40 years, but also that a number of Polish universities, Polish companies, Polish researchers got to test the experiments in orbit, which otherwise would have been very, very difficult and very costly for them, because they would have to partner with international institutions. It would not have been easy to do that. So I think everybody was happy in the end, especially Sławosz Uznański-Wiśniewski. And like I said, I don't think there was a better man for the job.
So in your insight, you wrote that Poland has been, at least at the beginning, a cosmic bystander. And I wonder, was there a project that, for you, indicated this shift from the bystander to the cosmic participant?
There are plans, pretty tentative so far, to build a Polish probe to go to the moon, which has only been achieved by a very small number of countries so far. So that would have been a massive achievement and a massive show of force, show of ambition for the Polish space sector. That has not happened yet, but we'll probably get to that point fairly soon. We do have Polish companies that have created groundbreaking technologies for Earth observation. Well, there's one company that's a Polish/Finnish company. It was technically founded in Finland by Polish and Finnish engineers, but its major research centers are here in Poland. The company is called ISI. They create some of the most capable Earth observation satellites in the world. And they create a whole constellation of them, meaning that their satellites can basically offer you almost uninterrupted analysis of what's happening on the ground, whatever you need to be paying attention to, whether it's disaster relief, whether it's I don't know, maritime safety, that was literally their original mission, or whether it's war. And if there's one lesson that we probably learned, especially from the early phase of the Ukraine war, is that satellite data proved to be the key to, well, not victory, not yet, but certainly to fighting efficiently against a numerically superior opponent. Ukraine very quickly started getting satellite data from around the world, not just satellite data from government-run agencies, which they probably did, although nobody really talks about that, but they bought commercially available satellite images that allowed them to accurately assess what the Russians were doing, where they were going to attack, in what force, etc., etc., etc. And that was key to actually defending the country efficiently with the limited resources they had. So yes, space imaging, Earth imaging from orbit is incredibly important, both from the security perspective and from the climate perspective, from the farming perspective even. And Polish companies are becoming quite expert at this sort of thing. And the Polish government is also paying attention. For the first time ever, we have contracts for actual government-run Earth observation satellite constellations that should form a backbone to the various decision processes. Whether it's security, defense, or disaster relief, which is also incredibly important. So yes, the companies are providing the resources, but fortunately the government, and it has to be said, both the current government and the previous one, understand the value of these technologies in not just emergency situations, not just in war, not just during floods or other natural disasters, but also in the day-to-day operation of the country. Because you can't run a country efficiently if you don't know what's happening in it. And those technologies allow you to see exactly what's happening wherever you need to focus your attention on.
It was actually one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. You started, yes, the war in Ukraine suddenly shifted this idea that space exploration is not about only science, but also it can be about national defense. And I wonder, over the past 13 years of Polish space industry, have you seen the conversation about space and defense shifting following the war in Ukraine, or were there always this feeling that this will be a crucial part of the defense?
To an extent, it was always there. It's just that before the war in Ukraine, we were far more reliant on using other people's capacities, either NATO or commercial companies. The one thing that changed after the war in Ukraine is that the decision makers understood that in order to be confident that we will have the data we need to have our own capacity. We need to have our own satellites. Because only then can we be absolutely sure that nobody is going to tell us no at the crucial moment. That we will always have the sort of data that we will need to protect ourselves. So yeah, that was a big shift. And honestly, the programs to provide the Polish government, the Polish military, and the Polish emergency response services with their own satellite capacity have really kicked into high gear after the Russian invasion. So yeah, that has been a big shift. I mean, there's always been an understanding that those technologies are important, but the war showed everyone exactly how important they can be and how important it is to have uninterrupted, secure access to them.
From what you are saying, I get the feeling that what's driving this boom in the Polish space industry is, in many cases, a huge ambition of the Polish companies and Polish engineers. Are there some other factors that influenced how quickly this sector started growing in Poland?
We also got kind of lucky when it comes to technology. So worldwide, the space industries are in a sort of like a transformative phase right now, because a lot of the technology that have been developed for terrestrial applications are now finding their way into space. I mean, if you look at the size of a satellite, of a typical satellite, the things that you would need a spacecraft the size of a walk-in closet in the 1990s can now be achieved by a satellite that's maybe this big, like a foot, like a cube, a foot each side. Thanks to that, and that's thanks to the same processors that gave you the smartphone that you have in your pocket. So miniaturization, the development of AI that lets you control certain things automatically. We have allowed spacecraft to become smaller, simpler, while remaining just as capable. And the Polish industry has used that transformation to its advantage by launching a number of products that were using those capabilities extremely well, while all the established space companies were still trying to figure out how to fit those technologies into their old models. We didn't have that baggage. We could start faster. And another thing, the Polish space industry, so far we've been talking about satellites, satellite parts, and rockets. But we have to remember that a massive part of this industry is data analysis. And Poland has some of the best satellite data analysis companies in Europe, certainly, that are a key part of most European satellite programs, such as Copernicus. Copernicus is this massive European Commission Earth observation program that's basically key to climate research, to weather forecasting, to environmental protection, etc., etc., etc. And a lot of that data is analyzed here in Poland because Polish engineers, Polish AI specialists, Polish software engineers turned out to be amazingly good at writing software that lets you get the exact information, the exact output from the raw data that you're receiving from orbit. And that is supremely important, because you don't, when you're receiving signals from a satellite, you don't get a nice clean picture of what you want to see. You get a torrent of data, and you need to be good at processing enormous amounts of data to get the information, to get the parts that you actually need from the flood that's coming from orbit. And that's another thing that Polish engineers have proven to be extremely good at, data analysis. And honestly, this has a lot in common with Polish developments in artificial intelligence, because we see a lot of the same technologies, sometimes the same people being involved in AI development and in satellite data analysis. And apparently, Polish universities, Polish technical universities, have been doing a very good job preparing engineers for exactly those roles. So, good job to our technical universities, I guess.
And what would be the biggest obstacle that might maybe slow down this amazing growth?
Same thing that any startup in Europe is facing. European startups have, compared to the American ones, have a problem in simply accessing capital. There's a lot more people willing to risk their money by investing them into startups in America than there are in Europe, which means it's a lot easier to fund a startup if you're working out of New York City than it is if you're working out of Warsaw, or Stockholm, or Paris, or Berlin. But that's a European-wide problem. And we do see the capital inflow when it comes to the space industry increasing, although I'm certain that everybody in the industry would like to see a lot more money coming in, because money is obviously one of the problems. Another problem is the fact that I mean, this isn't a universally held opinion. I've heard that some companies suffer from it more than others, but the speed at which the industry developed also means that there are fewer and fewer potential candidates to work in those companies. The pool of talented, well-educated engineers who know about space is running dry. So some of the companies have to train people from scratch, like from the ground up, just to have the numbers they need to fulfill all the contracts. So that has also been a bit of an issue, although probably that's going to ease up a bit, because a lot of educational institutions in Poland have started their own space technology programs. So in just a couple of years, we should see a lot more young, talented engineers coming into the labor market. And hopefully that will allow those companies to develop even faster.
Fast forward, looking 10 years into the future, where do you think Polish space industry will be in 10 years if in 13 years we made such a leap?
It's very difficult to say because the speed of the growth, of the development of the industry has been so rapid that, honestly, I don't know if anybody within the industry would be comfortable making predictions about what's going to happen 10 years in the future. We already have mass-produced satellites. We already have advanced satellite components and very advanced satellite data processing happening in Poland right now. We do have companies, like I've mentioned before, working on creating Polish launch vehicles, Polish rockets that would be capable potentially of carrying cargo into space. That, 10 years is probably the right time frame to see that happening. So in 10 years, we might start seeing Polish launch vehicles, not launched from Poland, probably. There are two scenarios. Either there's a common European launch complex way out in the Arctic Circle that's been used by several countries that would possibly host some of the Polish rockets. And the Polish Space Agency also attempted to sign a deal with a British company called Virgin Orbital that launches rockets from a specially modified Boeing 747. So that way we could sort of launch our rockets over the Baltic without putting anybody at risk. You do want rockets to fly over water and not over populated areas. So that's something that we might see in 10 years. Another thing, we'll probably see a growing size and complexity of Polish satellite systems, not single satellites. We're talking about satellite swarms, satellite constellations, where dozens or hundreds of small devices working together can provide you basically a 24/7 picture of what's happening on the ground. And hopefully, if we can, dream for a little bit, maybe we'll see the first purely Polish mission to the moon or some other object beyond Earth orbit, if for no better reason than just as a showcase of the Polish space industry, that we do have companies capable of launching a mission like that. I mean, that would be a fantastic advertisement for the Polish space industry as a whole.
I wonder if it would be fair to compare the kind of progress that we are seeing right now in investment in the space industry with the Cold War era types of investments in the space industry. Just like at the time, the Europe, the West, and the Russia are frozen in a conflict that isn't a direct military conflict, but there is this tension still going on. And seeing that Poland sees Russia as one of the biggest threats and at the same time invests so much in the space industry and accelerates this industry with public money too. I wonder if it is fair to compare the two. What do you think?
Yes, with one important caveat. Russia is a very important threat from the Polish perspective, but when it comes to, let's call it the new space race, Russia is no longer an important player. The Russian space industry has deteriorated so badly that it's now a third-rate space power at best, behind countries like India or Japan. So Russia is not the major factor driving any sort of massive space developments right now. China is. Right now, the biggest competition when it comes to space technologies is between the United States and China, with the European Space Agency and the Japanese Space Agency and India sort of forming the second tier of space powers. And we are seeing signs that show that China might actually become the predominant player in space within the next couple of years. I've certainly seen analysis saying that we should expect the United States to lose its dominant position in space technologies, space development, space exploration, and potentially military and commercial applications of spaceflight within the next couple of years, simply because China is far more focused. China is moving at a very rapid pace while the United States is not. And the European Union, the European Space Agency, while it has started to acknowledge that we're missing certain important technologies, aspects of you could call it space power, we are still several years behind actually being able to do anything about those missing pieces. So yes, right now, the main driver of investment, the main driver of geopolitical ambitions when it comes to space is the rivalry between China and the United States and everything that follows from that, both commercially and defense-wise. It is the most important factor driving the space industry worldwide right now.
Just to wrap up, to finish, final question. If you were to tell a person from abroad in one sentence why the world should pay attention to Polish space industry, what would you say?
Because what's happening in Poland right now just shows you how quickly things can change when you get a lot of talented people, give them room to grow, give them room to realize their ideas, and give them an opportunity and the financing that will let them work on whatever's been in their heads for the last 10 or 12 years. It's a very rare phenomenon. It hasn't happened many times, like anywhere in the world, where you see a whole high-tech industry explode basically within years from nothing. We've had 13 years. We became sort of a mid-sized space player in Europe. In the next 10, we might be first-tier European space power. Who knows? It's absolutely possible. And it just goes to show you that the potential for absolutely cutting-edge, high-technology industries exists in many places where you would probably not suspect that the engineers, the entrepreneurs, they are capable of achievements like that. I mean, 13 years ago, there was a meme running a meme in the internet. Poland can into space, which was kind of this. I mean, it was basically mocking Polish grandeur, Polish nationalism, but it turned out that Poland can into space, Poland has into space, Poland will into space, and we will do a lot of space in the near future. So yes, pay attention.
I love that. Wojciech Brzeziński, science journalist, editor, MIT Knight Fellow.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to our listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, share, follow the Warsaw Wire, and we see you in the future